Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to take a call on behalf of New Zealand First on the Heritage New Zealand Pouhere Taonga Bill, third reading. New Zealand First does have some real concerns in relation to this legislation, and we will not be supporting it. We concede that some aspects of the Historic Places Act did need updating. That Act was originally drafted in 1975 and amended in 1993. And as time has marched on, what has not been regarded as historic under the Act, that is, being post-1900, is now becoming of significant heritage and historic value now as we move well into the 21st century. For instance, the World War I centennial era is now upon us, and we must be mindful of the importance of such important periods in the history of our country. Important structures to commemorate that great war are most certainly now being regarded as having historic importance. Likewise, architecture from the 1930s, such as Art Deco in Napier, is now coming into that same category of unique historic significance. However, putting those positive aspects of amendments to the Act aside, the most controversial focus of this bill, the area where New Zealand First has grave concerns, is the change of the name and complete restructure of the Historic Places Trust, a name which in itself has historic heritage value, the Historic Places Trust, known to us all over many, many generations. That iconic name, Historic Places Trust, will become Heritage New Zealand Pouhere Taonga, and with it the whole structure will be radically changed. New Zealand First does not agree with the proposed changes, which will see the disestablishment of the local branch committees, and I think that is one of the fundamental problems that many New Zealanders have, and many which submitted to the Select Committee, in that this is taking away that whole volunteer side of the Historic Places Trust. Committees throughout New Zealand who have laboured long and hard over many, many decades to ensure our heritage is preserved. And we all know of sites in our own communities where such voluntary branches have raised money, have worked hard, have put in a huge amount of volunteer labour to preserve sites or buildings or special areas of historic interest, and where those people have put a great deal of their own personal time, money and effort into that. Effectively, Mr. Speaker, what we're now seeing is that volunteer system, which New Zealanders are famous for, and New Zealand has the honour of being a country which is seen as one of the highest level of volunteers in the world. In the developed world, we are renowned for our level of volunteering. That is now seeing that whole volunteer situation being undermined, and the effective corporatisation of our New Zealand heritage under this bill. It also sees the removal of 3 positions of elected members of the Trust Board, and again that is most disappointing, that in the past the people most involved in historic places and in heritage were able to elect members to represent them on the board. That will no longer be the case, and again that in effect is a removal of the democratic principle, and again we do not support that. What it says now in the Act is that the governing body will comprise 8 persons appointed by the Minister, one of whom is to be appointed as the chairperson of the board. The persons appointed must collectively have the appropriate skills, knowledge or cultural background to assist Heritage New Zealand Pouhere Taonga to perform its functions. At least 3 persons must be appointed who, in the opinion of the Minister, after consulting with the Minister of Māori Affairs, are qualified for appointment, having regard to their knowledge of Te Ao Māori, Māori worldview and Tikanga Māori, Māori protocol and culture. The appointments must be made in accordance with the Crown Entities Act 2004. So effectively, Mr. Speaker, this is the corporatisation of the Historic Places Trust, and it is taking it from all those many limbs all around New Zealand and all those many volunteer branches around New Zealand back to the control of the bureaucrats and the central government control here in Wellington. And that, to our mind, to New Zealand First mind, is not a good thing, and it undermines the very reason why so many of us cherish and give such great presence to our historic places all over this country, because they are there on behalf of the people. They're not there on behalf of a bureaucracy in Wellington that is administering them. The Historic Places Trust has comprised volunteer committees and communities all over New Zealand who have provided invaluable time, energy and local knowledge to maintaining and protecting the history and heritage of New Zealand. They represent all that is good at grassroots level in New Zealand as dedicated guardians of much of our most precious history. These volunteers are being ungraciously moved aside in favour of a more centralised corporate model run from Wellington. The Select Committee heard from many branches and individual members who felt they were being sidelined by the whole process. They felt it was detrimental to the heritage movement across the country and result in fewer people taking the trouble to volunteer their time and money to this most worthy endeavour, protecting the history of our nation. And that will be a result of this, Mr. Speaker. There will be a reduced level of interest. Volunteers will not continue to offer their services in the way they have in the past, because simply the rug has been pulled out from underneath them. They felt aggrieved that their annual fees will continue to be taken, but with greatly reduced representation within the restructured organisation. This is not what New Zealand is about. The history of our country is not about another piece of government property that they can corporatise and commercialise. Mr. Speaker, it is therefore with grave concern that New Zealand First opposes the intent of this bill, because it certainly does not put New Zealand heritage and dedicated volunteering New Zealanders first.
Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to support this bill, which delivers on